Hello, Chicago Fire fans. Welcome back to our channel. I hope your day was fantastic. Before we start, kindly like and subscribe. Sure, they risk their lives every day by patrolling the city to fight fires and assist those in desperate need of medical care. But it's their personal lives that have the Chicago Fire characters in a tizzy. Chief Dom Pascal, Dermot Mulroney, entered the station with a heavy hand, hoping to secure his position as Wallace Bowden's Eamon Walker replacement, all the while knowing Lieutenant Christopher Herman, David Aidenberg, is the heir-in-waiting. To make matters worse, Pascal lost his wife in a vehicle accident, and despite the fact that the case was dismissed and the other driver was found not guilty, he is unable to let her go without some form of justice. Lieutenant Kelly Severide, Taylor Kinney, and Lieutenant Stella Kidd, Miranda Ray Mayo, were approved to adopt a baby, and were at the hospital, awaiting transfer from a mother who said she wasn't ready to raise a child. After seeing the newborn, however, the birth mother changed her mind, leaving Stella Ride heartbroken. Randy Mouch McColland, Christian Stolt, has been preparing for his own possible promotion. His studies were interrupted when his wife, Chicago PD head chief Trudy Platt, Amy Morton, was shot and nearly killed in the line of duty. And yet, in the midst of these storms, an anchor has arisen. Paramedic in charge Violet Maikami, Hanako Greensmith, has been a beacon for her brethren, demonstrating serenity in the midst of chaos and composure in the midst of fear. Even when her romantic life has gotten difficult, Carver, no, Flynn, no, Carver, she has been a consistent source of support for the squad. It's a surprising situation for someone who was initially portrayed as arrogant and harsh. It's particularly noteworthy because Violet is only 2 seasons removed from losing Evan, Jimmy Nicholas, the late paramedic field chief, and her previous boyfriend in a tragic tragedy that she witnessed. Violet has settled in nicely with her new and still adventurous second, paramedic Lizzie Novak, Jocelyn Huden. She is much less settled when it comes to romance, still unsure what kind of relationship she wants with firefighter Sam Carver. Jake Lockett. She, finally, dropped Flynn, Stephen Strait, her dud of beau. Upon his suggestion, she applied for med school. Violet realizes she still cares for Carver, but it might be too late, as he is on his way out of the Windy City. Will Violet overcome another love lost, or will she find the weight too much to carry? Greensmith shared more in this edited Q&A. BTS. Something has changed, at least for me, in that I now see Violet on television, and she is a ray of light, a far cry from her early days. To be more truthful, she has truly become an anchor. When I see Violet in the midst of commotion or terrible behavior from other first responders, she is professional, wonderful at her job, and simply solid. Romantically, she's had her struggles, but overall, she's solid. How do you see Violet now, from where she has been to where she is now, and all she has overcome? Do you see her the same way I do? Hanako Greensmith. I hadn't thought of it in that manner, but she has become kind of like an anchor point in a tornado, as far as like all the inevitable crisis that Firehouse 51 goes through, and all the challenges that she herself is put through. But when you say it, yeah, that makes so much sense. And I would say, yeah, I think one of the things that she might potentially struggle with is she wears her passion on her sleeve, let's say, and so she's quick to react. She's quick to defend, and that's one of her positive attributes. But I also think that's something that she actively has to fight against as she steps into more leadership position, where she knows that being professional is really the way that she's going to get what she wants and what she needs to protect others that she cares about. So that's been kind of the internal battle that I have been playing with this season to make sure that we're seeing her grow into something that's bigger than she's been before. But it's also maintaining, I think, what makes her her, which is this passion and this loyalty and this deep care that, sometimes when misdirected can turn out aggressive, and sometimes when it's on the right path can turn out into fabulous leadership. BTS. You mentioned deep care, and certainly we know that Violet has deep care and affection for Carver. We know that Jake has publicly said goodbye. He's leaving the show. How do you think Carver's departure is going to affect Violet moving forward? Hanako Greensmith. Oh girl, I don't know. She has been through so many goodbyes, so many intense departures with characters that have been close to her. I think losing Carver, in whatever capacity that ends up becoming, I think will be another huge blow. And I think it's just going to be a test to see, like, is this a moment where she throws in the towel? I'm not saying that she gives up on everything, but maybe now she's like, hopefully, not pursuing anything, which is something we've seen her do before. So perhaps we'll see that again. Perhaps we just see her take this in her stride and put even more passion into her work to overcompensate for whatever grieving is going on behind the scenes. Or maybe she just accepts it now that it's happened so many times. You know, this is just something that she's become accustomed to. I really don't know. I mean, I think we all react differently to different challenges, especially in different times in our lives. And we've already been faced with one that's similar in the past. So I think it'll just be up to the writers to see where they want to see her grow, or they want to see her change. Hanako Greensmith as Violet Mikami and Jocelyn Hudon as Lizzie Novak on Chicago Fire. NBC photo by Peter Gordon. BTS. In talking to you and your castmates over the years, I know you all have a lot of faith and trust in the creative team and the writers, and so they're ultimately going to determine where this goes next. But do you a horse in this race? I'm wondering, do you have a preference or an area where maybe you would like to see her romantic life, or perhaps lack thereof, go moving forward? Hanako Greensmith. I try not to get too attached to any particular storyline, just because I know things can change. And, ultimately, whatever the writers want, I'm happy to do essentially. But personally, I think it will be really exciting. I mean, we've seen Violet in so many stages of grief regarding romance. Maybe that's it. Maybe I've just seen her in so many stages of romance and connection, and I don't think that has taken away from her professionalism or her talent behind the job. But I think if there was a way where she could feel like she could give back to a certain community in a way that felt very aligned with her morals and her values, that wasn't necessarily attached to romance, I think that kind of further develops her as a person. Maybe we get to know more about why she cares about certain things, so we get to see, like, what is her backstory? Where does she come from? Why does she care about those things? Or even, like, is there a world in which she makes an incredible friend from a community she never thought to be close to? It's just exposure, not just for her. But I think the audience to witness what relationships can look like that aren't necessarily inherently romantic. BTS. That would be very cool. Just so long as it's not med school, of course. Hanako Greensmith. Laughs. I won't lie. When I read that in the script, I was like, oh, this is a little nerve-wracking. Stellaride. Miranda Ray Mayo's Stella Kidd and Taylor Kinney's Kelly Severide. Seek to adopt. NBC photo by George Burns Jr. Hanako Greensmith. I think we're going to watch, at least from Violet's perspective, we get to see her navigate next steps with Carver. She's now a free agent in the sense that she's finally come to terms with and been honest with Flynn and broken ties there. And I think we just get to witness, like, what are her expectations? How does her community support her? Is Carver ready for this kind of conversation? Or is this just going to be one of those things? Or is it just one of those heartbreaking missed opportunities? And, of course, without giving away other characters' storylines too, there's a lot of really juicy stuff coming up, just as far as action for a lot of our firefighters and for Pascal. And also, Kidd and Severide are going through their own incredible life changes, and navigating those together, and more intense conversations are to be seen. BTS. I find that the Chicago shows are impressively authentic, which makes me wonder how the maths. You're an actor, and presumably your experiences are that of an actor. Firefighters and paramedics have their own experiences, certainly, and so they bring their own thoughts, fears, and different emotions to each situation. Not having their experiences or their training, what is the challenge in finding their inner emotion or a motivation to make it look as authentic as it does each episode? Hanako Greensmith. I appreciate you finding it authentic. Obviously, we'd all, as a production team, work so hard to make it visibly as authentic as possible. I would say, for example, I did a ride along with an awesome paramedic in the city, Rosa, at I believe Firehouse 57. I think what actually helps is not necessarily seeking out the emotion that they're experiencing. I think it's seeking out what the day-to-day, what the intricacies of their routines look like. Because once you get to understand the structure and the expectations and the examples of what either stressful or non-stressful events they go through, it's easy to fill in the blanks of what emotion might be behind that. Because realistically, I can't copy a paramedic's emotions, but I can copy their actions, and then I can fill in the blanks where I think emotions might fit. So when it comes to understanding what it means to lose another member of the fire department, when I know what that structure looks like, how each firehouse gathers for that particular fallen firefighter, what the grieving process looks like, structurally for everyone, I look at what that means for each individual person, more or less, like their closeness or distance from it. I feel like when it comes to my character, when I understand the black and white, I can fill in the gray. BTS. People see this hashtag on Chicago Juggernaut. They see that these shows are happily renewed every year, even as a lot of other shows are not. What is it like to be in this world? We only see it from a finished product standpoint, but to be in it, to be making it, what do you think would maybe surprise people about the hashtag Own at Chicago World and how it's brought to audiences every week? Hanako Greensmith. Since I graduated college, this has been my whole world, like it was COVID, and then all of a sudden I was launched into a network show. And I never thought it would happen, or happen this quickly, at that, so I don't have a comp to compare it to. I think the things that probably aren't surprising, but I think are maybe surprising, like within the industry, to any of my friends who are actors that I don't actively work with at this time, it's always just how genuinely close we are as a cast. We are incredibly, incredibly loving of one another, like we're traveling abroad at the end of the month together, a lot of the cast. It's something that we take pride in, the fact that we've invested a lot of energy into really appreciating one another and cultivating friendships. And this is something that's, I think, really rare within the industry. And it's such a help, because when you're doing 22 episodes of a season, and the weather is absolute hell, it means everything to have people that you can laugh with, that you can lean on, that you can cry with, man. Thank you for watching video. Please subscribe my US Chicago to our channel, and stay with us.